right, welcome back to another groundbreaking episode of EdUp Career Schools, The Scoop with your host, K.A.T. So today is going to be a critical, conversation because we've always been talking about the high turnover in higher education, specifically the admissions departments. But the question is, what is happening? Are we pointing fingers? Back in the day, the high turnover was because maybe advisors were not meeting expectations. So it came to the point of maybe this industry may not be for you. Or the advisor themselves were saying, sales, not my thing. So I think it's time for me to go. But what happens when you have heavy hitters? What happens when you have people who are excellent at what they do, passionate, top advisors who decide to say, deuces, my time is up. Okay. In the end, what hurts is the student. The student gets hurt in the end, and we have to get to the bottom of it. So, leaders and executives, you might want to get yourself a pen and paper because we have to get to the bottom of what's happening so that we can avoid losing some amazing talent. So, to help me walk through this conversation, I have three OGs with me today. All right. First off, we have Miss Dayna Lee. Dayna had been in the industry for about 17 years. I met her as an advisor over 17 years ago. Okay, and now Dayna is the founder of Savannah Wine Institute. Hey, Dayna.
Hey, how are you? Excited for this conversation.
Absolutely. And then we have Miss V, Venetia. All right, so Venetia has been in the industry over 17 years, probably more than that, right, Venetia?
Yeah.
Okay, and Venetia came from medical billing and coding. Okay, you're talking about some really gifted advisors, and right now Venetia is working as a medical biller and coder,
Yes, I am, and very happy.
and very happy. Okay, and then we have Miss Didtra. So Didtra also has been in the industry over 17 years, another top advisor, and right now Didra is the associate director of work development for a nonprofit. Okay. So even though these ladies are doing some amazing things, their passion was higher education, but something prompted them to say, this is not for me anymore. So we're going to talk about this. So first off, ladies, I want to know, why did you choose higher education? Of all the things that you could have done, why admissions? Dayna, let's start with you.
Well, I started in the legal field. So I worked for a law firm that actually sued students who couldn't pay their tuition or parents who couldn't pay boarding school fees. And in working with the founder of a private institution, he basically pointed out that I treated students like they were people, they weren't debtors to me, and I was able to get them on a plan or a payment plan so that they can pay what they owed, re-register, and finish their degree. So he was the one who pointed out that I should go into higher ed. And I kind of found my way from there. So I thought I was going to be this highfalutin lawyer, and it stopped dead in the tracks when I kind of took an assessment of what I like to do, how I like to counsel, help people. And I started doing like my research and how I can jump into higher ed from what I was doing. And I got my first admissions job where you met me, Kathy.
Boom. That part. What about you, Didra?
I kind of landed in it by accident. What happened was, I'll be very brief. I came from outside sales background, working for a company, and unfortunately, due to it's quota based, and this was after 9/11, so things kind of took a turn. And I reached out as a telemarketer for a school in Manhattan. So I was responsible for setting appointments for the admissions department, and I did so well within 3 months that I was promoted to a director, not a director, but a manager, a supervisor for telemarketing. And then once that department shut down while I was on vacation during the time, they wound up keeping three of us. And I was introduced into admissions. I didn't know what it was. I heard of it, but I didn't know, they was like, no, your numbers are so good. You're talking to people over the phone. You converting leads. They're coming in. Everybody's asking for Didtra White, Didtra White. Do you know that's a skill? I'm like, no. And that's how I stumbled into the field. And the moment that I realized that that I can talk and I can help and dealing with the demographics that we work with, which was people that look like me, that had some similarity backgrounds as me, growing up and just trying to find their way. And I was able to motivate and, follow up and walk them through and then help them to get into school. I said, I'm right where I need to be. So I didn't even put a question mark where God put a period. I kept it pushing.
Love it. Love it. And what about you, Venetia?
Well, I always say it chose me. I didn't choose it. I started out in the medical field, and because of a position that wasn't offered to me, um, I decided to go back to school. And this college that I went to, the director of admissions felt that I had this skill just in our conversation. I don't know, she was doing an interview on me and asked me, had I ever worked in education? And I said, no. She said, well, what do you think about it? And I was like, I don't know what to think about it. I've never done it before. But she felt that I had the right personality for it. And I ended up having to go to school and didn't even have to pay tuition because I went to college
Nice.
and I was in admissions and it paid for itself. So that's how I got in and loved it for years.
It's funny that you put an ED on loved. Let me ask you, ladies, what did you love most when you were an
I
advisor?
can't hear again. I'm sorry. I have to log out and come back. It's my
It's okay. We
Wi-Fi,
got
so
you. We
I'll log
got
out
you.
and come back.
We got you. We're going to see you in a second. So, what did you ladies love most about admissions?
I have to say what I loved was the diversity of students
Mm,
that I came in contact with, and just being a part of helping change and transition their lives to doing something from a negative to a positive, and
mhm.
being able to be a part of that process for them. That's what I loved most about it.
Now, see, that's interesting because, a lot of advisors, even today, they talk about the students, right? They talk about how much they love the students. But then it's the matter of, all right, we love the students, right? But do we love the job? Do we love
Hmm.
the career path? Do we love their environment? Okay. And I think that's where we're going left too. What about you, Dana? What did you love most about admissions?
I think the same. I think we're all going to mirror the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Working with students who, especially my first admissions job, they had tried several things. They have a lot of what we call stakeholders, um, asking them, like, oh, you did this last year and this the other year, and like, you've already taken out student loans, and are you going to finish this? And you have to do daycare, you have to work. So,
Mm-hmm.
taking people who have all of those, kind of things working against them and trying to figure out a way that it could work, either schedule wise, finance wise, and just motivation wise. So I think that was what drew me to it. And I do like to give my opinion, and like what to do. So I was able to get that out too, but more like make a plan for people who maybe have not been treated that way. So
Mhm.
that was good for me.
Okay. Welcome back,
And
Didra.
I'm sorry, lady. I'm sorry because my Wi-Fi, so I may go in and out. So y'all have to please excuse me. It was not done on purpose.
No.
Didra, Didra,
So
okay, this is
do
the beauty of life. Okay, so it's
okay.
all good.
Cool. Awesome. So take me back to what was the question. I'm so
What
sorry.
did you love about admissions?
Oh my God. What I loved about admissions, because I'm a talker
Uh-huh.
and I love talking to people. I love the fact that when I'm given a lead and I can speak to someone over the phone, and my thing is I'm thinking about the 50,000 other people that's
Mm,
going to catch that lead before me. So I'm always like, let me get that first. So I think the fact of pre-screening them over the phone, not that much, doing the 80-20 rule, and being able to have them to come in the same day, for one, that's a gift. To have them to come in the same day, and just being able to sit down with a possible prospect, I guess is what we used to call it back then,
mhm,
and being able, to talk with them, so what brings you in, and being able to do what I always call the career planning session, to find out, why now,
mhm.
out of everything we talked about. So asking the why, the what, when, and why. But overall, just being able to help change, because I had those that believed in me when I didn't believe in myself and pushed me. So it's like, okay, you got the torch. So now your responsibility is to carry that torch and pass it down, because I stand on the shoulder of many giants. So I'm like, I'm not going to take credibility for it, but I saw myself in them, and that's why
Mhm.
it speaks. I didn't look at them as a number. But there was a time, we'll talk about that later on. But as I
Mhm.
evolved and matured in the industry, I just loved helping. And I don't mean to sound like it's all about us, because it is always all about us. But when it came to our people, in my mind, I was just so stuck, like what society say, what we can't do.
That
So it's
part.
like, how do you help change that narrative? What is it that you can do to talk and to speak? And again, it ain't about just enrolling it. Y'all know the start, the stay, the graduate, the follow up, and
Mhm.
then seeing them walk across that aisle. Oh my God. So that's what I loved. I love the fact that I can change lives and get them to stay and see it
Yeah.
through. I will tell them, if you don't see the journey, if you don't see the vision, you're not going to do the journey. So how can I be a visionary with helping them bring their vision to fruition? So that's
I
what I
love
love.
that. I love that. I was about to say, when it comes to seeing the kids walk across, well, the adults in most cases walk
Yeah.
across that stage on graduation day. I remember one guy who lived in a shelter, and this guy came in with his three plastic bags filled with clothes every single day. He put them underneath the desk. Right. And then you
Yep.
have more privileged individuals who had all these excuses, but you have this one who's saying, I don't know how I'm going to get through it. Right. But then at graduation, you're sitting in that front row and you're watching those same people walk across the stage on graduation day. And then you're seeing them everywhere after graduation, church, the grocery store, walking up the block. It's like you couldn't escape these
Right.
students at all, but we had a fun team. Admissions was fun.
Yeah.
Okay, it was a great
Yeah, it
environment
was.
at times,
It
right?
was.
But then also it was competitive. Okay, maybe competitive is an understatement because our team,
Toxic.
yeah, it was,
Yep,
it
that's a
was
big
cutthroat,
understatement. A big understatement.
there's a little cutthroat.
Hmm.
But you know what? Overall, it was fun, and I think that's what's missing. So let's talk about the challenges because we've already determined that admissions is a life-changing career path, right?
It
But
is.
then we have you three amazing ladies that students are actually missing out on, right? So let's talk about some of the challenges. Where do we think some of those challenges actually, grew? Any of you can start off.
Well, I think,
Well,
oh,
after you, sister, go ahead.
I was gonna say I think a lot challenges that I faced was if a student didn't have the support, that team that was supporting them as they were going transitioning or trying to find their way, um, just doubting themselves, not having a lot of confidence, and having to be the person to encourage them. Finances, obviously,
Mhm.
probably top of it all is money. People look at loans and how if they have a payment out of pocket, how they're gonna do it, if they've got mouths to feed, if they got rent to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Those are true challenges that they face every day. We all face them, and especially
Right.
with the cost of living up so high now. People can't afford to even put food on the table, put gas in the car, catch a, with even mass transit now has gone up. So people are facing a lot of financial struggles. And then you want to say, the only way I can get better is if I educate myself to put myself in a better position.
Mm-hmm.
But then that seems even challenging to really hone in to let them know, you know what, maybe you need to, cut this bill out. Maybe the cable bill. Maybe we just need to go live streaming all the time and just get a couple of apps. Is that as
Right.
important? I'm trying to figure out a way to help them put a plan and process to figure out how education is going to be the forefront for them.
Yeah, that's true.
Hmm.
And we need to find a solution, for
Yeah.
that. And also, what helps is the admissions teams getting the resources to actually, help these students also. Go ahead,
Hmm.
Didra.
Well, I'm going to agree with you 100%, sister, on what you just said. But let me just piggyback on that too. What I also found was that oftentimes, as a mission representative, sometimes too we have to take accountability, because sometimes we get so caught up with just the numbers, the numbers, and that also management plays.
A
This is
huge.
what I've always said: if you have a team that is not structured, that's not productive, that's not doing what they need to do, check the manager. You always got to go to the leader. The leader plays a major part in anything in our lives. It's a leader, right? So I would sometimes literally watch an excellent admission rep go in and they may have a bad week, they may have a bad semester or a bad, month. And I
Mm-hmm.
watch management knock them from here to there.
The
So
bottom.
their energy and being afraid, because if you don't get these numbers, you're not going to have a job. So
Mhm.
the fear of them losing an income and then still trying to be productive and trying to be motivated and trying to move through their prospects, it's the biggest epic failure. You understand? So sometimes that plays a part into, because all of us went to school, all of us went to college, got our degrees or whatever. And we know what it's like. Some of us are parents. I'm not a parent, but we had to deal with those different type of, the life was lifing for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Every last one. But for some reason, who it was or whatever it was that motivated us, it still kept it kept us going, right? So imagine, and then imagine when they go home, what you going to school for? We got bills to pay. I'm not,
Mhm.
they got to deal with the
Mm-hmm.
buying. Now the buying committee is in their head. After you don't spend 3 or 4 hours that day with one student,
Mm-hmm.
getting them processed through financial aid if you're lucky, doing everything. So it's a variation of everything. But I believe that if if you that one person, you have 10 people in a room, if you can motivate one, you did your deed for the day.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you got that one student that it's work. It's like babysitting. They enrolled today. I'm calling before I leave. Hey, how you doing? This is Miss White. Just want to say congratulations again. I just
Mm-hmm.
want to catch up with you. I'm about to head out for the night. Don't forget that. Da, 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 da. I'll be there. And it's
Mhm.
constantly. I used to tell Asia. I said, Asia, when I get off the phone, when I stop calling, when they tell me not to call, even when they tell me not to call, I'm gonna wait about a month later and call back again because I just didn't know for an answer because I felt, defeated. So with them, they deal with a lot of negative. They already in the stew and it's hard, but we are so professional and we so transparent and we just got the gift. We
Yeah.
just got it.
Mhm.
And we know how to convert it. We know how to bake it, put it in the oven and cook it. But we also have to deal with that. So to answer your question, I'm always long-winded. I'm sorry, y'all. But
It's what
the
we're here
management,
for. It's
thank you.
fine.
The management, us as admission reps professionals, we could sometimes play a role in that too, because it's a job. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy. Once we see the number on the board, we feel we can go back and go to sleep. I'm not sleeping until everybody graduates.
Mm-hmm.
That's why because I'm always concerned through the process.
Mm-hmm.
What problems are so it's a combination of everything, yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and let you talk, sister.
No, well, what's funny is
I'm like, I don't know
so,
why she put me on this call. This is right. You know what? You know
what
why?
you and
Because this
Venetia said.
conversation has been necessary for years. I've been wanting to
Yes.
talk about missions.
Mhm.
But here's
Ooh,
the thing: what you and Venetia said so far is so critical, right?
mm,
Because Venetia is talking about the obstacles that the students are facing. You're talking about the obstacles that the admissions advisors had to face with these types of students, and then
mm.
yet still you had to perform, or you would be unemployed. So
Oh
now
my
it forces advisors to put students in a box. But now it still comes back to you when it's like, well, why is that student in that program? Well, we only have 1 week left to the class start, and I'm 10 students behind,
Mhm.
and you're threatening my job. So I need to enroll these people, so it's contradictory, right? But then also when it comes to leadership, I
Mm.
remember where Dayna and I was working, we had the heavy hitters at the top. And when I say heavy hitters, I'm not even talking about performers. I'm talking about the executives at the top who was giving the
Mhm.
numbers at the bottom. And the reason why there was a disconnect is because we're at the bottom saying, have you ever sat on the phone with a student? Have you ever gone through an interview for 2 hours? And then that
That part.
student goes the very next day, and then you're telling me I need to do this 15 more times? Do you understand what an advisor hears on the other line and how you have to have emotional stamina?
Mhm.
Sometimes if you're going one call after next, you need to take a break and say, whew, that was heavy. I need to take a walk and regroup for a couple of minutes. But then you have the director coming behind you asking you why you're not on the phone after you just looked at a student who has a chunk of her arm missing because her husband cut it out. But you need to get back into the next interview.
Mhm.
So it's like humane but inhumane at the same time. We understand it's a business, but at the same time, these are people.
Mhm.
Dayna, talk to us.
Everything that everyone has said and more, and just adding a little bit, there's no trust. I feel like a lot of the upper management or mid management, they don't trust the advisors. So that if they see me, walking around the office, getting coffee, giving high fives to people, that's me regrouping so I could get back on the phone to talk to the next 25 people I need to talk to for the rest of the afternoon. Or it's me purchasing, like we worked at a medical school, like much like medical billing, coding, ultrasound, etc. And that's me purchasing a lab coat so I can walk around in a lab coat to give my students that visual of like someone who looks like them in a coat with some heels on and a clipboard giving tours. But that was frowned upon. And just like making meetings outside of the school with high school counselors, workforce counselors and advisors, just to work smart and not hard, right? They want you to do that in the office, but when you take that outside of the office, then it looks like you're not doing your job. So, and to piggyback on we had a start date 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a month, and I have to get 12 people in said start dates, and I have 9 who were good and these 6 that aren't so good. So I have to convert. And I know that I can't put these people in the seat, or if I do, they're not going to graduate. They might not even make it through the first 10 days.
Yep.
So I think it was a lot of that. And I would rather have a start date with 50 people who are going to graduate than a start date with 100 people and less than half graduate.
That part. And you know what, Dayna?
No. Oh.
You know what, too? Just to say something else, and you hit it right spot on. But you know what, too? Let's also let these directors and these assistant directors and these big wigs, they have to really take accountability because their number projections are unrealistic.
Right.
You're making
exactly
realistic. First of all, I don't know about you guys, but I'm from the concrete jungle. So when you live, what I mean by that is I'm from an area, it's urbanish, but I'm a rose that came out of concrete, like a lot of us, but you're given unrealistic numbers. If I know the demographics that I'm working with, and I know the challenges, and I know what everything is that they're going through, but everybody wants to shine. Everybody wants to be pat on the shoulder. I'm talking about the big dogs. I'm not talking about us in admissions. But you got your director that can say, oh, I can pull 150 for the next start. Next start is 3 months. So we're putting the stress on. I've literally had to go in my office and close the door. I've had that. At the time I was smoking cigarettes. I had to go outside and smoke cigarettes many years ago. At times I wanted to quit because I'm saying I know I can do the job. The numbers speak for itself. But let's be realistic about what we are working with, the demographics that we are working with, the type of students that walk through this door. But you got the big ones. No, because if you're not, the worst thing they can tell you is that you're not doing your job when they are not even there. They don't even know the people. They don't even, like you said, are you on the phone? Do you hear the conversations that I hear? And then let's talk about the parents when you're dealing with the students that are dependent students. Mama, like, I'm not taking no Parent Plus loan. Get your butt home. So look at it this way, y'all. We was hustled by the hustlers, and they want us to hustle the ones that couldn't.
Isn't that something? And that's what it felt like.
See, I had to figure this whole game out, and after a while, we'll get into that later. But I was like, wait, I'm not here to hustle nobody. I'm here to help. I'm here to heal. How can I want them to always in life, like we got those favorite teachers or those people that played a big. I want to be one of those. Y'all remember Miss Didtra White? They hustled us to hustle those that we knew that we couldn't hustle.
Yeah.
It was like we were being pimped.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad. It's sad, but that's exactly what it is. That's a really great analogy.
My feelings and how you know how they do the one-on-one, you got to do your futures. Now they want to know who's packaged, who ain't packaged. You want to agree on it. But they also sit there and you're questioning me when I'm already letting you know what's going on. I could tell you my students start in my sleep.
Always could.
Yeah.
But so my question to you is, if you have 15 on the board, why is 6? No, something is not right. You know what? I'm going to monitor your calls. And you sit there like, are you kidding me?
That's the trust that I'm talking about.
I'm going to sit on your interview. I just want to critique you. You sit
there like to trust.
At that time, I'm 10 years in strong. I don't need you.
But you know what's funny? You know,
Oh
it's
God.
funny. Dana can speak to this. We were in a situation when it came to a class start, you were able to name the advisor who enrolled certain students. And you would see them walking down the hall, and it's like, no, they did not put that student in that class. And it
That's
was like
right.
this whole thing, like, well, I got to make a number. And it's like, how you put in somebody with no legs and no arms in a medical assistant program? So
Exactly.
I mean, come on. It is not even discrimination. We have to think about the student because what's happening and what's been happening for years, academics is always complaining about admissions. Financial aid is always complaining about
Always
admissions.
complain.
Career services is always complaining about admissions. Admissions is
Mhm.
always the
The
black
blame for everything.
and the thing is people don't understand the pressure from the admissions team,
Ooh,
right?
Mhm.
And
Lord.
the thing is, you have very gifted people in admissions who are not going to enroll certain students, regardless of what people are
Right.
saying. Because if you're here for the right reasons, you're going to say, no, the student is not the right fit
Not
for
ready.
this program. Right. So sometimes we have to think gifted advisors like you three are always thinking, all right, the instructor is going to be pissed off if I put this person in this program. Career services is going to be cussing me out and financially going to have a problem. Right. But then you have the director saying, what happened to that student? She seemed perfect. She meet the requirements. Yeah, but you weren't involved in the conversation. She may meet the requirements on
Exactly.
paper, but what she just told me on the phone, the student is not going to make it through the program. And she doesn't even want to. She's here because somebody's forcing her to be here. And those are the worst types of students.
That's
Okay.
bullying. And go back to what Dana said about trust. Because if you trust the three of us, we're in admissions and you trust and we're doing what we need to do. We like that. We're performing extremely well. And if I'm telling my director that unfortunately Dana's just not a good fit for this training class right now, why would you question my skills? Why
Mhm.
The
would you
lack of
question,
trust, like Dana said.
like you just said, though, okay, all right,
Mhm.
I'm with them. I'm speaking with them. The goal, that's why we do a career planning session. That's why we sit there and do the one-on-one so we can overcome and try to find out you can have everything, but sometime here mentally,
Mhm.
it can be money, it could be anything. When you go question me, so you mean to tell me you let someone with a high school diploma, no, 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 here it is, they have no high, they got a high school diploma, and they're not in default, and they don't have children, and you mean to tell me that they could? It's all about the money because they have these lenders, they have these different companies that invest. I had to learn admissions. I got to figure this whole system out because the way these directors running around going crazy, like I literally wanted to put hands on a lot of them, but I had to because you know why? My thing was, it's not what you say, it's how you see. I can do it constructive criticism. I'm
Delivery.
I
Uh-huh.
can take it, but it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So when you with that Deidre, no, because, and I'm like, okay, I'm just
Larry
asking
pointing.
down a little bit. That's all. That's all. So it's about the money. When I learned that I was in, it was labeled at the time, ladies, as educational sales. So I'm selling education, okay, but I want to sell education where I'm selling it to the right people that need it
Yeah.
and that can benefit from it and that are able to, when they do graduate 6 months later, that they are working and they're able to pay off those loans and not get caught up like a lot of us did with the Drake schools closing and the
Mhm.
Sally, what's the other school out there in Manhattan that closed? All these schools that shut down because they was doing so much. And
Mhm.
and I think for the three of us, and we all can agree as a collective that our heart is in it. It's
Yeah.
our heart. It's our soul. I loved it, but as at a time, I was like,
Well, Venetia, let me ask you, do you feel as if you received the support that you needed in your
mm,
role?
I think that when you got management that has got their hands in a million different things, and then when you need them, it's not there. I felt like management has worn many, many hats, and then they can't, and then they've got the pressure on them from higher ups. And I just think there was, to me, I call it a show that I didn't want to be a part of anymore because it became overbearing. Um,
mm,
and I just don't feel like a lot of it is effective. I think that the beat downs in admissions was horrific. It you get beat down and then you try to come back up and then you get beat down again and you're only as good as your last sale.
Mm,
Um that was the biggest thing. You get rewarded, and then once you don't do something, it's like, okay, well, what have you done for me lately? So
Mm.
then that's when it became a change for me as well. Like, okay, well, I don't want to play in this ballpark no more.
Oh,
I don't want to play in the
I,
sandbox no more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as much as I love the admissions, I'm just so glad at the stage I'm at now that I'm out, because
Got it.
yeah,
I
me
feel
too.
that a lot of admissions now, it's changed. The game has changed so much. It was different. We used to really have fun, and I don't think
Yeah.
the management isn't fun anymore. I think that it's just so much pressure because they're too busy trying to look for money as opposed to really keeping the student first. And how we're really gonna that student can really benefit from their program. Great pretenders. They claim they want to help, but they really it's whole other. I understand the business aspect of it, but you got to do smart business when you're dealing with people in their lives,
I like.
and
Yep.
I don't think that the student really was the forefront for them. I think their pockets were the forefront.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very sad. If we are going to put unrealistic expectations on the admissions teams, you have to at least give them the tools to survive. Leaders out there, if in fact you are falling behind or you realize that leads are not converting, doubling the lead flow is not the answer. Okay, because all that does is add more pressure to your admissions teams. There is a certain number of leads that one advisor can work effectively in one given week. That means being able to connect with them multiple times on different avenues. If you're doubling the lead flow and you think it's going to increase your number, all you're doing is losing money, because what the advisors are going to do, they're just going to dial through the leads just to check it off, because they know that if there's leads still in the system, they're still going to get dinged for it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, they're not going to be able to work it. So it's like, if you're going to give expectations, jump in and say, well, this is how we are going to achieve it. Not this how you're going to get it done. This is how we are going to make it happen, because the leader doesn't sit at the head of the table. They sit at a round table. And I think that's what's missing
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of companies, period. So the magic question is, why did you ladies leave? And this is where everybody need to get a pen and paper. Because you probably have tons of people sitting on your teams right now who've been on Indeed for the last month, and they're
Mm-hmm.
probably going through their final interviews right now, and you have no idea. All
Mhm.
right. So, Day, talk to us. What was your major reason?
I know the exact day that I left, and it wasn't something that I planned to do. Like, we had to start, I projected a certain amount. I think I got like 12 students for a start date, which for that particular start date was my actual number, right? And I had 12 good people. Could have had 20, 12 good, and 8, nah,
Uh-huh.
but I went with the 12
Mm-hmm.
because there's always another start date. There's always another program. So the lie that we're told to like act like this is the only thing happening and you have to quit your job and find daycare and whatever you have to do to start on Monday, that was dead for me. So of course I had a meeting, and I just want to piggyback on what we were talking about. I had no problems with my direct manager, like who I reported to. I felt supported but not protected.
Mm.
Because as an employee, if I report to you, I don't think that the three people you report to should be able to come to me
I'm on
directly.
my lunch. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. And like, come at me. Like, you have to be some sort of like a go between where you relay the message. As Deidre said, I can take constructive criticism, but it's how you say it and who's saying it and where it's coming from, right?
Yeah.
So I'm already not protected. I know I did what you asked of me to do, but I'm better than what I gave.
Yeah.
But I didn't have, the sample size of students that would give my optimum, performance. So I'm in a meeting, it's a Friday, and um, the director, Kathy knows who he is, the director basically was like, oh, you just did this, blah, 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 and just like went in for like 35 minutes of how terrible I was as an employee, as like a motivation to make me, I don't know what I was
Wow.
supposed to do, stand up and like, no, I'm better than that, you know? So he went through this whole thing. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I quit. And I went to my desk and wrote out a resignation letter and gave it to him. And it's a Friday. He's like, no, 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 no. Think about it over the weekend. Come back. Like, think about it. Think about it. And I'm like, no need. He's like, yeah, think about it. He gave me the letter back. Came back on Monday, went straight to his office and handed him the letter. Because at this point, what are we really doing?
Yeah.
Good, good for
Yeah.
you.
You know, what's going on here? Since I'm so terrible for doing what I'm supposed to
Right thing.
do, there's no turning back. You haven't given me any kind of pointers. You haven't given me any additional training. You haven't had me shadow with someone who you think would bring me to the next level. So what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And it was a decision I had to make. And I stayed in admissions after that. I became a manager at another school, up till national director of 3 different campuses, New York, LA, and South Beach. And I'm grateful for my time as an admissions counselor in that, you know, those few years that I worked with Kathy, because as I got, you know, further into admissions, I used those experiences, right? So that I didn't do that to other people.
Yeah.
And that's how I became national director,
One. That
because
part.
I was that shield where, and it's so easy. It's so easy. I've had owners of schools, board of directors, all these people down on me to tell me what my people need to be doing. Did my people know that they were saying that? No,
No.
because I figured out a way to give it to my people so that they were able to, you know, perform.
Mm-hmm.
And the upper, they think I'm over there screaming at them. They don't know what I'm doing,
Yeah.
but they know that the performance is there.
Mm-hmm.
So it is possible, regardless of who's telling you what needs to be done, whether it's corporate, whether it's the actual owner of a school, whether it's a foundation, whatever it is, it's possible. So in that room with that director, I knew it was impossible for me to move any further
Yeah.
without putting hands, as teacher.
As Didtra would say.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh-huh.
I was young at the time, but yeah,
I wasn't.
that part, Dana, that part. Yeah.
Vanetia, what about you? What was your breaking point where you were
I,
like, this is
oh
I
God.
just I think that first of all, I just felt like after a while it's like the hours for me were like crazy. The last school that I actually worked for, it was the hours were too long. I didn't feel I felt like I was in bondage. Um I didn't have the freedom that most places like I'm working now and I'm able
mhm,
to
the
like
work-life
navigate and
balance?
do different things. I
Mhm.
don't that whole pressure of being on the phones constantly and everybody monitoring, it was just overwhelming after a while. And you just don't feel, I don't know. It was a lot of things. It was so many different things between um the pressures every day. It was a lot. It was just a lot for me. And I was like, okay, I'm over it. I want some vacation time. I want some real personal sick time. That PTO stuff doesn't work for me, not at the stage that I'm at in life. I wanted a pension. I wanted a union, somebody to back me because we talk about support, or being able to feel comfortable in your position now where I'm at now. I mean, I'm in a union, and if something happened, I got a delegate to help work with me. And not that we have those kind of problems, but at the end of the day, security was something for me. And I don't think in that industry, when you start to get older, it's just, you can start out wanting to make a lot of money doing that, but after a while, it's like, please, I stopped chasing money. I said, I want a life.
Yeah. And I know you spoke a lot about micromanagement.
Yes,
Period.
I felt like we were really micromanaged, and when you got people that really honestly come in and do their job, you don't have to
Mhm,
micromanage people. Just let them do what they do. Either they got to be adult enough. You hired them,
mhm.
allow them to make mistakes, allow them to go through the process or whatever. And there's an issue, then pull that person to the side and say, listen, this is what it is. But to be micromanaged, I don't like life. I can't live life like that. I just can't. But I'm just happy now.
The glow. And what
It's
about you,
real.
Didra? What was the final straw for you?
It was a combination of a lot of things. It was management. It was now they're getting to the part where they're stealing leads, stealing students, financial aid, getting paid under the table to, get your students, front desk getting paid. You make an appointment, all of a sudden now front desk says no, she had made the appointment. It was just
Mm,
too. I was tired, and I promise you, maybe 3 or 4 months before that, I was already looking. I was just done. I was tapped out, and and just like you, Dana. At that time that I left, I probably had I had 15. I promise you, out of 15, I think 10 was already packaged and ready to roll through, and I was working on the additional five. I was just over it. I said to myself, I said, you know what, Father God, this does not define who I am. And back to what I can never pronounce your first name, Vanessa.
Venetia.
Venetia.
Venetia, what Venetia was saying about job security. Now I'm thinking about age. Now I'm getting older. One thing about this skill set, we could take it anywhere. We can take it. I don't care if we go to China. We can take it and go run a university
Mhm,
with it. But I just was looking at everything, and I was like, I'm just done. I was mentally, emotionally drained out of it because I knew what I brought to that industry and I did amazingly well. I made good money, but at the end of the day, I changed so many lives and I have no regrets. But it was just time to move on. But to the managers and to these directors and supervisors, you have to be better at your leadership and you have to allow your team to sometime fall. But you also have to take accountability to being afraid to speak up to those that you need to speak up to say, hey, well, listen, the type of demographics that me and my team is working with, this is what we, speak up, support us too, because we're good at what we do. So I
mhm.
was just over the numbers, the conversions, the phone calls, the micromanagement. I felt like a kid, like I don't need you to watch me. You I don't, so I was just over it and I did what I was supposed to do. I started just looking. Let me just put all of my skill set, my education, put all that to play. And I wanted to just come out, and God has been good for the last 6 years. I'm like, thank you, Jesus.
Awesome.
Amen.
Done,
Awesome.
done. Like, nah, would I ever go back? The only way that I would go back if there's like some old school, like us OGs, all of us together,
You started the
and
school.
and and Dana built the school, and she needs some heavy hitters to help her build.
Well, come
So
down to
I'm out
Savannah
Olivia
Wine
Pope.
You
Institute.
already has 2 locations. Once
I'm
you go on
out
over there to
Olivia Pope
Savannah.
mode. And we're gonna help you rebuild because I can tell based on I'm an empath, so I can tell on the energy that you guys are very passionate. And I know it's about the student. That's the only way I go back and rebuild. But I'm good. I'm in such a good space at my job, at the position. I'm too busy right now, which I always tell people I'm successfully busy now, which I love.
Mhm,
And I'm all right now, but I think those that brought me into the industry and taught me, and I followed those that was able to lead me into leadership. But admissions is just done for me. It's a done deal. It's so tainted now.
Well,
Mm.
here's what leaders need to hear, okay? Because even though you ladies are no longer in that specific, field
Yeah.
or role, the leaders out there, they need to understand the shortfalls, but also how we can start to rebuild so that they can take a look at what's going on in their, departments and say, wow, actually, that's what I've been doing for the last couple of months, and now it's time for me to make a change. All right. So before we leave, what do you think that leaders need to do in order to maintain a strong and healthy team so that we don't continue to lose some really valuable employees?
Hmm.
Venetia?
I think that leaders need to really purpose in their own hearts to not to positively impact their team. And being positive is not always about a number. It's about encouraging and letting them know, that they trust them, They believe in them. They're there to truly support, to really truly support them in a positive manner. And then don't go back on your word. Don't tell me today it's A and then tomorrow it's B. Be consistent and stay consistent and have your team's back, because you're going to take the blunt of whatever's coming from the higher ups. You
Mm-hmm.
take it like a champ, and their team don't even have to know you got sideswiped. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
and just keep your team, like, I don't know, do like little surprises for them, just to
Mhm.
let them know, I sent you something. I got you I got your little package on, because they want to feel appreciated too.
Acknowledgement. Hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
that job is not easy. They take a lot of blows. They deal with a lot of students, with a lot of conversations, things that go left. They don't make their starts. You still got to let them feel that whatever they accomplished, it was an accomplishment, because
Mhm.
that didn't have to be.
Exactly. I love that. What
Mhm.
about you, Dana? Throughout those
Um,
gems.
I know that we have a lot of leadership that either back in the day or maybe even recently come from admissions,
Hmm.
but I think they need to revisit it. Um, put yourself in the counselor's seat. I don't know if that's taking calls or making appointments. I don't know if that's touring. Just put yourself in the seat of your staff so that you can kind of see, you know, who's calling in, who's coming to the open houses, who's not going through the financial aid process. Instead of being in an office and having a lot of this and just
Hmm.
talking down and telling someone what to do, sit in their seat, take calls for an afternoon, because it's going to do a couple things. It's going to, one, maybe give you some sort of pointers if someone's not performing. Two, you're able to see the leads that are coming in, because maybe it's just a call to corporate or call to marketing to see where you could, put your advertisements. Maybe don't have it going on when, does Maury Povich still come on? I don't know, but maybe don't have it on at 2 o'clock in the afternoon with Maury Povich. Maybe connect with different organizations as opposed to just putting something on a subway. It could be that, and then it also, on top of that, shows your staff that you really care and you're kind of in the trenches with them. So it's like a
Yeah.
three-prong kind of approach where just a simple Friday afternoon from 2 to 6, managers or directors are going to be on the phone making the calls, calling leads, making appointments. I think that would be educational. It's not performative because you're doing the work. And it's a way that everybody comes together. If we were talking about that round table, not someone
Hmm.
sitting at the head of the table, but sitting with the employees. And I feel like that's one small thing. I know there's a bunch of macro things, but that's a micro thing that could be done that I think would turn the page with, the morale, the motivation, along with the stuff that Venetia said too, like acknowledging people, having social events. And I feel like in our office, Kathy, I brought the fun into the
You
office
did.
because my first week there, I was like, who's taking me to my welcome happy hour? Like, what are you doing? I was I was making people order food. I was making people go out. And it helped us so much because when you're friends with someone, you help someone. Or if you see them struggling, you can pull
Mhm.
them aside and be like, let's go have a coffee, let's go have a
Yeah.
walk. And if you don't have that with your coworkers, and then if you definitely don't have that with your directors and your management, it's not gonna work.
No, not at all. I love that. Deetra, end us
Yeah,
off. What do you have to say to our leaders in order to sustain a healthy and a strong team? What
I
advice would
think I think that the leaders need training. I think the leaders also need to have more positive leaders that can also lead them into leadership. Because as much as you want to be able to motivate, inspire, and push your team to get those numbers and to be productive and do what they need to do, a lot of these managers, a lot of these leaders, a lot of them, they lack it. They lack the people skills. They lack being a leader. They lack managerial skills. everybody is talking at you and not to you. Okay. I also believe that these managers and these DOAs and ADOAs, everybody needs to be the voice, to have the heart, to be able to have these uncomfortable conversations with their higher ups,
Mhm.
professionally, respectfully. Well, listen, Katie, I understand what you're saying, what's going on here at Didra School of Nursing, but let me explain to you what me and my staff is working with.
Mhm.
Have a voice and do it unapologetically, but respectfully, but have a voice to also represent your team. Okay, it's just like in sports. You have a good start, you have a good season. Sometimes you have a not so good season,
Yeah.
right? But I believe that these supervisors are all of them can use training. All of them, and what's so funny? They all lack. To me, they lack soft skills. That's just me. So I'm gonna end it with this: the leaders need proper leading. That's it. Point blank, period.
That's a T-shirt.
They need to.
It is a t-shirt. And so, first off, ladies, this has been an extremely impactful
Yes.
conversation. All right. And leaders, I want you to know out there that this is not a bashing session, because there are some amazing leaders out there. This is why I didn't say managers, I said
Yeah.
leaders. Okay.
Because your staff can be a
different.
leader too.
They,
A
they're
rep
just
can be a
being
leader.
different.
Yep.
Mhm. But what happens is your teams, they need your support. Your admissions teams, they're working so hard around the clock. And I always say, look, even if they miss a start, still celebrate it. Because what about the students who did start? What about the students who are content? They don't count anymore because you missed by a few. And this is why sometimes your teams take it to be a numbers game, because it starts from the top. All right. So if you really want to maintain an amazing team, here's another thing. Leaders, just because you have a top advisor does not mean that that's going to be the next DOA. Okay. Because we have so many managers that are floating around who are glorified reps. Okay. But they have no people skills whatsoever. So sometimes the top rep is just that, your top performer. Okay, there's a lot more that goes into leading and inspiring and motivating a team to want to be better. All right, the last thing I'm going to say is the worst admissions team that you can have is a group of people who are there because they absolutely need to be, because they have to provide for their families, right? The best teams are the ones who show up because they want to. They want to see you win as a leader because they understand that you're there for their benefit. All right. So thank you guys once again for joining. It was amazing. And
It was a
until next
pleasure.
time.
Nice meeting you all.
Bye, ladies.
Bye, everyone.
Everybody. Have a
Email me.